I'd like to provide you some feedback on Lab 2. First, let's go over the instructions a little bit. And you're asked to write a program that builds a word index from a file, and then writes to another. So the first line really is a summary of what the program should do. Builds a word index from a file. So kind of, try to make that, that needs to be clear. The content of words come from a file, and try not to ask the user to input the content of the file. Okay, so perhaps you could ask for a file name if the user provides their own file. And then the output is to write to another file. All right, and then the word index is defined. And also I guess I don't have to repeat this. You should understand this fairly easily. Now, in this instructions, some of you try to ask for a search, ask for a word that is to be searched. I don't know where you get that search functionality from these instructions. There's no search. So please read the instructions carefully for future assignments. If anything is unclear, please ask. And then here, there's an example of output format. This is for each line. And the file needs to contain all the words. That's part of the word index, along with the occurrence of line numbers. And the line numbers should not be duplicate. So this is the additional requirements to clarify what you should do. If a word occurs multiple times, only output the line number just once. And the line numbers should also be sorted in ascending order. And also the words, every line is a single word. That also should be sorted in ascending order. And it should define a main function, and that is explained in the lectures. And there's also an example of how that's done. So I wanted you to start building good habits when you write a program, and also use the with statements for file processing. Try not to ignore the requirements. You're not going to get a good grade if you don't satisfy the requirements. And sometimes to provide tips that might help you. All right, so that's the instructions. And let's see how I solve it. And I'll give you some specific feedback as some of you guys, how you try to write this program. Well, actually, I should make a couple of comments first. First of all, when you write a program, it doesn't matter what language you're writing it in. Try to, for every function or method, don't make that too big, like way too many lines. How many lines is too many lines? A rule of thumb is, it's just a rule of thumb. If I have a function that I cannot see in my screen, I have to scroll to see the whole thing, and that is too big. And then it's a good idea to break that down into multiple functions. So let's take a look at how I wrote this program. So first, let's read the file. And here I'm asking for the file name for the user to provide their own file. And you don't have to. If some of you checked in your input file, that's fine. But you don't have the points deducted if you're not doing it this way. In the instructions, really, I guess that point is not very clear whether that file is something you check in or this is from the user. So anyway, some of you got it right. Some of you, so that's a minor point. So here, you may have a test file. When I run your program, I use other test files. So I provide my own file. So the first step is read this file and build a word index out of this file. So you'll see here, I put all the code about processing this into another function because this function is fairly sizable. I consider this as, I don't want to put everything down here and this is the whole main function. The main would become too big. So you see this is there's no set rule about what this is. So as I kind of just give you, what is sort of expected or the rule of thumb of doing certain things. And I just, now, of course, this course is not really about teaching you all these things about Python programming, but wherever I can, I'll point out things or, a thing or two. Now, some of you use global variables. Try not use global variables. Global variables are not a good habit. You want to make sure your program is modular, they are self-contained, the functions are self-contained. There are cases for global variables, and there will be places where it makes sense, but there are the rare occasions. Now, I also mentioned generally when you define your own function, use type hints. The type hints really help you write better programs. You need to understand the objects, what they are. And because Python is dynamically typed, you don't have to specify them. And that can cause confusion or makes it difficult for the reader to understand. And sometimes the same name, you can just in the middle of the program and change that type of that variable, even though you could, but I really don't suggest you should do that. This is not a good habit. If you have declared a variable and that variable should stay the same type, don't try to use that name for many different purposes. It just confuses everybody, including yourself. All right. So, and here, for example, this we are passing in this F. Now, what is this F? This F, as you see, is actually a text IO wrapper object. Have you ever wondered what this is? What object is this, right? So you kind of somehow just know how to use it, but you should always know the type of every variable. You need to know the type. Python is actually a strongly typed language. If type doesn't match, it doesn't work. Even, and again, it's dynamic, so it gives you a lot of leeway how to do it. But it's a really good habit to know. And that will make you a good programmer when you're writing other programming languages, and not just Python. In Python, you can do things in a fairly relaxed way, but you'll notice if you know other languages, you will build up good habit across language. Not something just something works in Python and somehow is a good thing to do. So I just kind of want to point out a couple of things that will help you becoming a better programmer in general. So first we initialize a word index, and that's basically we declare this variable as this empty map or dictionary. And this is the dictionary we're trying to build. So we're returning the word index. What we're doing here is we say this is going to be a dictionary with a key as a string, and the value as list of integers. And the integers will, of course, represent the line numbers. Okay. Now, if we are doing object-oriented programming, and this would probably be some kind of an object, or at least some part of it would be an object or something like that. But for our simple program, we don't need to do that. And this is not about object-oriented programming. Now, and then here we use enumerate function to get both, not just the content of the line. It's gonna iterate through this iterable, this text IO wrapper object pass in. It is a iterable object, iterable of strings actually. So the enumerate allows us to access the content for each line as well as the index, because we want the line numbers. So that's why I want to use the index. Now this is optional here. So I first turn the lines to lowercase. So we use this map function here, and you're passing the function you want to apply to each element of a list. And this, the result of a split of the line, which is a string, it will split based on spaces, white spaces, and then give you a list of words. And then here we want to turn them to lowercase because when we build the index, we want to say uppercase, lowercase, they're all considered the same. This is optional. If you do it or not do it, it's fine, but I think it's a good idea to do it. And then we're going to look through this list of words. In fact, if you see here, the return value from this map function is not a list, it's an iterator. Okay, so you kind of try to be curious about the types of objects. Is an iterator, which is obviously iterable, and you can still use for loop this way. And then for each word, we need to examine, is this already in the word index? Okay, if it is in the word index, and then have we already added this line number? So have we already added line number in the value? Basically, the value is that list of line numbers. So we're saying, if the word is in the word index, okay, we have seen this before, the word index contains the word now, and then we're going to check if the line number already is there. If it's not there, and then we add that line number to that list, right? Now, if that line number is already in the line number list, then we don't add it. We don't do anything, right? So if the word is not in the, okay, let's see. If the line number is in the index, if the word is, so if the word is in, yeah. So let's say if the word is already in the index and the line number is also encountered, then this is a false. Well, actually, I think I discovered a little bug here. We only add the line number to the list of line numbers when these two conditions are met. Otherwise, we should not do anything. Now, here's the problem. Here, actually, we should say, okay, basically, if these two conditions are met, and then we add the line number to the existing entry in the dictionary. And then if the word is not in the word index, then this is the first time we see it. And then we initialize that list to be only this line number that we're seeing. Remember, the line number actually starts from 1, so just remember to plus 1 from the index. Index starts from 0, the one we get from enumerate. So previously it was a bug because if the word is already encountered, we have this in the word index. But then if the line number is encountered, then it was actually resetting that list, which is not a correct. So this is correct, right? So it's a little tricky. Then that's basically it. Now we build a word index by going through these nested loops here. And then we just need to output that. So now we have the word index. And by using the list function here, we're getting the list of keys, okay? And the list of keys, then we sort it, which is the sorted words. And then we look through the sorted words, we're gonna output each row. Each row, each line is a word followed by a colon. This is the format here. We're using a F string here. And then we have comma separated line numbers. Of course, there are many ways to do this. So here, now this sort may be not super necessary. This can be omitted because we process that word index in that particular order. Now, by doing it this way, though, is we're not making an assumption whether the list of 9 numbers are sorted or not. So we're going to sort it anyway. Okay. So basically, we're saying this part of the code is not assuming, this word index already got the line numbers sorted in that ascending order. So this is optional. If you don't use it here, it will be the same result. And then we use this string join function, join method, to basically create that comma separated line numbers. And one thing you need to pay attention though is you have to convert the line number, which are integers, to strings in order to use this join method. The join method only works with strings. Okay, so this join, you pass iterable, and then you give it returns a string, and then they are separated by comma space. And that's it. So let's run this. And I'm going to just use the readme file. Okay. And then we'll generate output.txt. So this is what it looks like. Right. And the D is obviously the most frequent word and occurred in this many lines. And they are sorted, of course. And the words are sorted. Right. So that's it. Thank you.